Hello, everyone. This is Yoko. In this channel, I'll be sharing information in English about events happening in China that may not be widely reported in other countries. Since I gather information from various media sources, I would appreciate your comments on the video content. English is not my native language, so I'm using an AI speaker to read in English. If you find the content interesting, please subscribe to the channel and show your support. Now, let's delve into the wild world of China. Today, I'm discussing the Chinese economy. There have been concerns about various aspects of the Chinese economy, including the precarious situations of major conglomerates like Evergrande Group and Country Garden. Many large companies are facing financial collapses in reality, raising worries about how to address these situations. Despite all these concerns, there's an even bigger story that has started to be reported in Japan. I'd like to introduce that story today. It's an article from Bloomberg on November 23, 2023. The article discusses the serious insolvency of a major shadow banking institution in China, reaching around 5.4 trillion yen. It details the story of a corporate group extensively involved in China's financial business facing massive debt overhang. Let's take a closer look at this prominent shadow banking institution. This issue has recently gained significant attention in China, with many articles being published. In Japanese, when you mention Choshikai, it refers to a corporate group related to Choshi industry. This corporate group is identified as a key player in shadow banking in the aforementioned Bloomberg article. To explain a bit in Chinese, for example, Broad Group is a collection of many companies. As the name suggests, under the top-level company, there are many subsidiary companies. When undertaking real estate development, various companies are established, such as those for development, sales, and fund management. This results in the inevitable increase in the number of companies. The collective term for many such companies is referred to as the Broad Group. However, in China, there exists a corporate group, referred to as the K Group, which is much larger in scale and influence than the Broad Group. In Japanese, we might not commonly use the term group for entities of such vast size, but in Chinese, it is represented by the character K. While this might feel somewhat unfamiliar in a Japanese context, we use the term K in Japanese to express extremely large entities, such as the solar system or galaxy. In China, the term K is reserved for corporate groups with exceptionally large scales. It's worth noting that, as a bit of a digression, take a look at this. In fact, there has been a corporate group called the K Group in China for quite some time. Some, like the previously mentioned Kaiko Group, have already faced bankruptcy. This is not a story from the distant past, it was likely around January 2021. So, not all have survived. However, in communist-controlled China, there have been a total of 9 extremely large corporate groups, and one of them is the Choshikai. If anything were to happen to this group, its impact would likely surpass even the collapse of the Broad Group. Taiwanese media, understandably, reports that the combined impact of the Broad Group and Country Garden would be akin to the disappearance of the Choshikai. This emphasizes how colossal the Choshikai is. However, since most people in Japan are not aware of this background, reading Bloomberg's article may not fully convey the significance of the content. Nevertheless, by observing the response of the Chinese Communist Party, it becomes evident that this issue is on an entirely different level from the problems of the Broad Group and Country Garden. Before delving into that discussion, it's crucial to note that concerns about the precarious situation of the Choshikai were already raised in August. The discussion about issues in the Choshikai started as early as August. In response, the Chinese Communist Party established an emergency response group to focus on this issue. It's worth mentioning that, despite concerns about the debt problems of the Broad Group and China's largest real estate developer, Country Garden, the Communist Party did not create such a response organization. Even with concerns that the collapse of the Broad Group could have a significant impact on the Chinese economy, no such organization was established. However, regarding the Choshikai, they created a dedicated team to illustrate the magnitude of its impact for China. The Choshikai faced a default, but as it had some assets, I mentioned the possibility that creditors might recover to some extent. However, the scale was not clear, and specific numbers had not been disclosed at that time. Now, the company has provided an explanation to creditors. Specific numbers are out, and in Japanese yen, the liabilities of the Choshike are approximately 8.8 trillion to 9.6 trillion yen, while the assets are only around 4 trillion yen. This is a severe debt situation, and the concerning part is that these assets are not all in cash. So, what does the Choshike do as a business? As mentioned earlier, in China, there are very large corporate groups involved in various activities referred to as ''K. The Choshike, essentially, gathers money and invests it. The forms of investment vary, for instance, lending the collected money directly to the broad group or engaging in similar activities like lending money to a company and securitizing it as financial products for the general public. And now, with news like this, they need to sell assets to repay creditors. This could involve selling stocks or bonds, putting enormous selling pressure on the stock market. In such an environment, if stock prices keep falling, there's a significant risk of a substantial decrease in asset value. So, even though they claim to have 4 trillion yen in assets now, if the value of stocks decreases, the assets will also decrease. The Choshike holds a considerable amount of bonds related to the real estate industry, and in the current situation where not all real estate developers in China can survive, those bonds might be nearly worthless. So, what does this mean? People who deposited large amounts of money with the Choshike, around 30 million yen or more, are protesting. Because, as mentioned before, the Choshike practically has no money left, and they may not be able to pay back the money as promised. So, investors might face significant losses, and even those who have deposited corporate funds might be in a difficult situation. In China, there are reports of protests by people who deposited money with the Choshike. Moreover, in the current situation, Chinese authorities are considering easing regulations on bank loans to some real estate developers. This has been reported in Japanese as well. With the background I just explained, it's evident that if banks continue to channel money to real estate developers, questions about where the money is going and what it's used for arise. There are suspicions that despite outward claims of payment, people who have not received their completed apartments are numerous, and real estate developers might use the money for other purposes. Now, what happens to the banks in this situation? Banks, theoretically, can imagine credit infinitely and generate money, but there are regulations. However, the Chinese Communist Party may have to keep loosening these regulations. Continuing this trend might depreciate the currency, although there are arguments against this, and it doesn't mean the Chinese yuan will become worthless immediately. Eventually, banks may have to rely on lending to manage various debt problems, resulting in a situation where Chinese banks hold massive non-performing loans. In conclusion, regardless of what happens, this story is the most significant problem among the worrying stories about the Chinese economy that have emerged. The future development is highly anticipated, and the fate of those who deposited money with the Choshike is a matter of great interest. That's the end of our discussion for this time. See you next time.